Hey there, YouTube land. Big Dave here. I'd like to take a few minutes today and try to answer a question that was sent to me by a subscriber, Murph1195. And he's talking about what do I do if I'm looking to buy a horn and some things to consider about that. Well, first of all, um, whatever horn you decide to buy, it has to be in your own personal choice, like what horn is going to meet your needs. So if it's a newer horn and you're within a certain budget, and you would have to consider looking at newer horns, like some of the modern horns in a certain price range that you can deal with. That's if you want a new horn. And then of course there's higher end new horns, and they can go into $7,000, $8,000. Now I see some of them are out there. They're commanding a pretty big price. Used horns, if you go for older horns like old Cons and Martins, they can be a good deal. They have a great sound, some of them, but the mechanical nature of the keys is not modern so much like a newer horn would be. Ergonomically, the way you play with your fingers and the way it feels. Some of them have the bell keys split like the old Cons, either split or on the left hand side, so that it's more of a direct pinky pressure to close those keys. And then some of the later ones start to have the crossover mechanism where the bell keys are on the, like we're familiar with. The more modern keys are here, and there's a lever mechanism that closes them to make it easier on your hand when you're operating the keys. That makes it easier for your pinky, rather than the ones that are just except the paddle ones, the old Cons. They're actually pretty user friendly, but the G sharp on the Cons is kind of weird because it's a balanced double spring action. It also doesn't have the articulated G sharp, so if you go to play like a low C sharp, and you want to go from G sharp to C sharp, it doesn't keep that key open with the C sharp key like the newer horns do. So those are the kind of considerations, when you're picking whether you're going to go old vintage, and then get into the higher end stuff like the balanced actions Mark 6s in certain serial numbers. I mean, they could be 15, 20,000, 16,000. I've seen them, and then there's a bunch of them, in the 6,000, 7,000 range. So it really, the budget and what you have in mind initially plays a big factor there. The other thing is, for example, if you're just going to try horns that are in shops, or if you have a specific horn in mind that someone is selling. Now, you want to check to see basically the condition of the lacquer. Is it original lacquer or is it re-lacquered? And sometimes the way you can tell is by looking at the engraving. Now this is original lacquer, and this horn is almost 100% with the lacquer. And this lacquer, all this engraving is really, really fine detail, and it's in really excellent condition. So, and like I said, this horn is almost 100% lacquer, and you can see the detail. That's the original detail on the on all the feathering and stuff is really very detailed, very sharp. You can see all the edges. Now. The condition of the keys themselves, when you press them, how they feel, and then when you go to move the rod, if it slides up and down, that means there's already wear and there's play. And you can also see on the corners of the rods, if they've been squeezed with a plier, they call it swaging or swedging or whatever, and flattened out a little bit to keep it from riding up and down. Sometimes the screws, if you look at how they're put in, they're either nice and smooth, or they're all chewed up. So these are all things that you you have to consider. Um, a relacker, a relacker, there's a lot of opinions on relackers. I've played some relacquered horns that play great. And if it's plated in like silver, um, rather than a relacker, or whatever, gold plated, there's so many different conditions of horns, and the way they play is really a big factor. And then, of course, value-wise, you want to try to check eBay for completed sales of certain horns to see about what price range they came in. And some, like I said, some serial numbers are going to require a bigger price tag than other ones, just because of their reputation and what they are. And some newer horns, like there's a lot of horns from China, Taiwan, Vietnam, wherever. That's really a personal choice. You have to go play the horn and see if it works for you. The pitch, it's hard to pick a horn right in the beginning to see how it plays in tune, because you're not used to the horn, and you don't know if your mouthpiece matches that horn. And because one mouthpiece might play better in tune on there. However, when you check the harmonics, the overtones, and the octaves and things like that, like from low B to middle B to high B, low C, middle C, high C, and then through some of the extended range too, just to see where it all sits, and use a tuner, or use a drone tone, like a constant pitch that you're playing along with, and then see how the general projection is. If it resonates well, if the upper register is too bright, if the high D and high E are very bright and thin, or nasal sounding, the low register, does it have a good full, like a singing low register, or is it kind of stuffed up? Middle D, with the octave key, middle D, it should be pretty clear. If it's not, if it's real stuffy, then there's probably some issue, and that might not be a good choice for a horn. Low B, I like to listen to low B and see what it sounds like. Close it up and play a nice full low B and see if it makes a good tone. It's different than B flat, because B flat, the whole horn is closed. B gives you a tone where the whole horn is really not closed, so it has a different, it just has a different feel to it. Now, tone holes, check the tone holes to see how much wear around the edges of the tone holes. One of my horns that I had for a long time, the tone hole started to crack, and I had to be silver soldered. Sometimes there's cracks in the metal after a while. The metal deteriorates. So some of the metal could be cracked, and issues like that. So there's so many things you can look at when you go to buy a horn. But like I said, check out the general condition of the pads to see if they're cracked, dry rotted, or if they're soft and good, pliable. What kind of resonators does it have? Are they metal boosters, plastic boosters? And again, that's a personal choice. Like I just use whatever's in there, nylon boosters. Some of my horns have some metal boosters. Look at the neck to see that it doesn't have a crease in it, that to show that it was pulled down, and it was. Now look, you could have a neck that was pulled down and it was repaired well, and sometimes you have one that was pulled down and it has not a good repair job, and you have to just check all that out, see how the neck fits into the horn, if it's too loose, if it's too tight. Look at the condition of the springs to see if they're clear or if they're rusted, and feel if they're doing their job, or if they're like flabby. So compare some of the overtones with the regular notes, if you know how to play overtones and everything. So that's how I do it. And also, when I test out horns, I never bring a really bright mouthpiece. I just bring a normal round mouthpiece or normal chamber mouthpiece. Anything with a big baffle or something, you're kind of fooling yourself. You're not really hearing the different things about the horn, you're kind of coloring it. So don't bring a mouthpiece that has too many of its own brightnesses or colors. Um, Unless you're really experienced and you really have a good feeling for your equipment. Like, we know later on, like Michael Brecker, he played a custom-made Gardala, and it has a certain kind of feel to it. So if he was going to test horns, I'm sure, if he was playing his Gardala, and he would know how it felt. He's used to that. He would be used to that kind of thing. Besides him being a genius that he was, he would be able to judge. But sometimes, if you're not that experienced, and you bring something like that, it might give you a false sense of what the horn really is capable of doing. So you might have a horn that's really not that good, and because there's a bright mouthpiece, it makes it seem like it's projecting, when really, if you put a normal mouthpiece on, it would be dull and flabby. So, and also, keep in mind, some people have different airflow than others. I have a bigger airflow. Some people have a smaller airflow. And I remember listening to some interview with Phil Woods where he said that later on he had a hard time playing his Mark 6, filling it with air, and he thought the Yamaha was more friendly to him as far as, that's why when he changed over, he felt it would do everything that he wanted it to do. So where earlier on in his career he could play the Mark 6 with no problem, but later on it became a problem, and he was still using the same Meyer mouthpiece that he used for however long, since the 50s, So anyway, that's the kind of stuff I look for. And also see if the horn is straight. Look down the rods to see if the horn is not bent forward. If it's only slightly bent, I've had horns that were bent before slightly, and they can be set up nice and straight with a good repairman. And that's another thing too to consider. So I hope this helps. But again, it's how it feels to you. It's how it sounds, of course. Is it in tune? Bring a tuner, all that kind of stuff. Or have a drone pitch, like I said. I think I said that earlier. And play along with a certain pitch, or sit at an electric keyboard and play the notes on the keyboard and see how they kind of sound and match up to you. Okay, so listen, I hope you get some help from this, and then we will, if there's more things, I can always add them later. All right, have a good day.